So risk aversion, risk aversion is basically a calculation of an investor's or an economic entity's tolerance for risk. So risk aversion basically is when people are trying to avoid risk. The level at which somebody is risk averse is indirectly proportional to their level of risk tolerance. So risk tolerance is the opposite of, tolerance is the opposite of aversion. So aversion is when you're trying to avoid risk, and tolerance is when tolerance is when you can take on risk. So for example, if risk tolerance is on one end of the spectrum, and risk aversion is one on another end, on the opposite end of the spectrum. Your risk tolerance is, if you're trying to calculate someone's risk tolerance, you'll put it somewhere on the spectrum, either closer to risk tolerance or closer to risk aversion. If you're somewhere in the middle, then you're more of the 50-50 type of person, where you can take on a little bit of risk, but not too much. Or you can argue, some people argue that if you're in the middle, then you won't take on any risk. But I would say no, it's not. You're fairly comfortable with taking risk. If you're on the very close to the risk tolerance end of the spectrum, then you take on a lot of risks. People like high frequency traders, quants and stuff like that. People that do really risky investments like trading and stuff like that. Those are people that are really risk tolerant. People that are risk averse, they just keep their money in cash. They might not even keep it in a bank account because they're really scared of the bank using it to make money and lending it out and stuff. Or they might just about trust the banks and keep the money in the bank and save it as cash. But that's pretty much it. They won't explore any other ways of investing. They'll just keep their money as cash, keep a safe job, stuff like that. They might not even try and progress career-wise because they're scared of being fired before being too forward in their attempt to progress in their career. So this is just a brief understanding of risk tolerance and how it applies to investing, financial investing, as well as career investing and lifestyle investing.